Good morning. I'm coming to you today on Sunday. It is the third Sunday in Advent. And I guess next week, Sunday is the fourth, and then the fifth Sunday of Advent is going to be Christmas. So we're still working on our Christmas stories. I'm on a car wash this morning because it's Sunday and I don't have to work. That's why I'm wearing my fun t-shirt that says Peabody, the Peabody Memphis, and it has ducks on it. I'll tell you that story later. Today I thought we'd read a book called A Possible Tree. It's by, it's by Aldridge and Souci. Now, I've heard that name Souci before, but I don't know what it means. And not what it means, but who the person is. All right, here we go. This is how it starts. All right. It looks like a farmer going out with his dog hunting. Let's see what they find. It starts off with, along the dark woods path, Joe Bracken's old coonhound howled and yelped, and zigged past Joe, leaped over the brook and zagged to the same fir tree, the same one as always. Joe watched with his gun ready. The dog stopped in a patch of moonlight and wagged his tail and scratched his neck and lay down. Joe turned back home. "No use hunting with that dog," he said. "That dog is no good. No good at all." And there goes the dog jumping around, jumping across the brook. All right, let's see what happens. From a top branch, the coon watched Joe disappear into the night and looked at the sleeping dog below. The fir tree tightened the circle of its bough around him and made a soothing shh, shh, shh sound. See the raccoon up in the tree? And there goes the man with his gun heading out. Tall, straight spruce trees grew in the woods around the short, bushy fir where the chase coon and Joe Bracken's dog rested, trees touching each other with branches leading up to pointed green spires. Together they swayed with the wind and swept storms out of the sky. There's all the trees, the fir trees. Look at that. Fir trees are beautiful. Joe Bracken's wife hung the wet wash outside Monday mornings. Wet wash? That's when you didn't have a dryer and you hung your clothes up on a line outside when the sun was shining, or even in the winter. If the sun was shining, depending on how cold it was, they would still dry. All right. Every time she hung up the wash, a blue jay screamed at her from the point of a white picket, and every time Mrs. Bracken screamed back, "You pest! Get your fine feathers off my fence!" She hurled the wash water at the bird. She always missed, except this time. See the wash water? What happens next? Off went the blue jay, dripping wet. He didn't fly far into the woods, only as far as the crooked tree, where he lit and shook himself and preened his feathers and rested in the curve of a branch. This is a safe place, thought the jay. Nothing to dodge here. And there he is, sitting up in that tree, that possible tree. Joe Bracken's son had a slingshot and a pocket full of pebbles. He had been bothering a mother squirrel who skittered about every day gathering chicken feed for her little ones. She always shot several rounds of ack, ack chatter back at him, but still the pebbles kept coming. So one morning, before Joe's sun was up, the squirrel scurried to the twisted tree and found a sound limb. It curled around her and around her little ones. It grew thick needles and provided seeds hidden in the prickly cones for food through the winter. Oh my, look at Joe Bracken's son. He's trying to get the squirrels. Kids will be kids, but animals, come on. Winter was coming. The tall trees stiffened and crackled as the days grew cold. Below, the crooked fir kept the coon, the blue jay, and the squirrels warm, holding them tightly away from harm. See the deer? See the woods? It's lovely. I don't live in a place with snow, but I have before, and snow is lovely in the wintertime, especially at Christmas. Joe Bracken's hired hands started for town in Joe's truck. They accidentally bumped a fox on the hump beyond Sweet Fern Hollow. The fox bounded off on 3 legs to the shelter of the forest and hid in the bushy bottom branches of the crooked fir tree. He licked his sores and calmed his fears and shut his eyes, and the fir tree closed a circle of branch around him. They didn't know, I guess. They didn't see him. He was running across the street. All right, let's see what happens. Then an owl came one night and 2 rabbits the next day, and Joe Bracken's coon dog slept regularly in a needle nest beside the fox. Everybody's coming to the tree. Everybody. Men from the Updike lumber mill came to buy some trees from Joe Bracken's place. Joe said, "Okay," so the lumbermen went through the forest, chopping a chip out of the straight and strong and tall trees they wanted to saw down, until they reached the knotted fir. The animals were off for the day looking for food, so it stood alone. There's Joe Bracken. He's got the man from the lumber mill. He's chatting him up. Let's see what happens. Excuse me. 2 burly woodsmen strolled up, stopped, and leaned on their axes. "Here's a tree we don't want," the burliest said. The other man laughed. "Never saw the likes before," he said. "It looks like Christmas wreaths all over. We should bring our wives and kids to see this," they said. They hurried to the old wood road and ran home with the news. Christmas wreaths on the tree? I know sometimes you can make Christmas wreaths out of fir branches, but the whole tree looked like a Christmas wreath? What happens next? Joe Bracken heard about it. "I'll go over tonight," he thought, "and look for myself." Then his wife wanted to go, and his son, and his old dog's tail wagged. They lit a lantern. It was Christmas Eve, and followed the flickering light slowly down the dark woods path. Joe Bracken's coonhound howled and yelped and zigged past them, leaped over the frozen brook and zagged under the familiar tree and curled up where he belonged. Everybody's heading over. It's Christmas Eve. Joe's lantern shone up and down the full length of the tree. "Look at that," said Joe's son softly. The birds and animals were back in their own wreaths. Their eyes reflected the lantern light. There were the blue jay, the coon, the squirrel family, the owl, 2 rabbits, a fox, and Joe's hound, all framed in fur. A few flakes of snow floated down past the straight trees and sputtered on the lantern's glass lobe. You know how animals' lights, if you shine a light at them, that they glow and you can't really see the animal? I think that's what they meant. Look at that. They're all in the tree. Joe's neighbors and others came. The snow stopped and the moon rose above them. They looked in wonder at the wonderful tree and said, "Who would believe this was possible?" Each word made puffs of white breath. Possible made the biggest puff of all, and then shimmered in the light of the moon. They're all looking at the tree and chatting. Who ever thought this would be possible? Everyone laughed and called, "Merry Christmas! Good night!" And the shining, shimmering went with them all the way home. And there they go, home. It's called A Possible Tree, and it's for all of the animals in the forest. And sometimes, you don't have to chop down every tree. Sometimes you can leave the tree for the birds and the coons and the owls and the foxes and that silly old coon dog. Happy Sunday. I'll see you guys this week.